Former NBA player Kevin Garnett is considered to be one of the greatest and most dominant power forwards the league has seen in its history, racking up over 26,000 career points, over 14,000 career rebounds, 15 All-Star appearances, an MVP award, and an NBA championship. It's no wonder why Garnett will be inducted into the 2020 NBA Hall of Fame class, along with Tim Duncan and Kobe Bryant. As he's considered one of the NBA's greatest players, he is surely defined as the best player the Minnesota Timberwolves have ever come across. Beloved in Minnesota, Garnett spent 14 seasons for the Wolves, becoming the team's most prolific scorer and rebounder so far. Minnesotans adore him, and are excited for the day that the franchise will raise his retired number into the high rises of Target Center. However, if you ask Garnett if he will retire with the Wolves, he will quickly deny it with fury towards the owner, Glen Taylor, and the organization. But why? Let's start from the beginning. Kevin Garnett was drafted out of high school, 5th overall in the first round by the newly formed and struggling Minnesota Timberwolves. The Wolves needed help desperately, as their best season so far in the franchise's life would only have a whopping 29 wins out of an 82-game season. Minnesota was anxious, as their previous draft picks in the past years, all top 10, were ineffective. If the Wolves' next pick were to flop, the fate of the franchise would loom into further darkness and question. What the organization and fans saw from Garnett's rookie season was promising, but not stellar. While the Wolves were still quite abysmal, winning only 26 games and losing 56, Garnett would score about 10 points per game and around 6 rebounds per game. These stats may seem low, but considering a 19-year-old rookie coming off the bench, his role looked healthy for the Wolves' future. However, Kevin Garnett wasn't the only sweeping change the Wolves would make that year. After starting a disappointing 6-14, Bill Blair was fired and replaced by the recently hired general manager of the Timberwolves, Flip Saunders. Saunders was not very effective following his hire that year, as the Wolves finished 26-56. But a relationship between Flip Saunders and Kevin Garnett was starting to form, which would change the face of the franchise, and Garnett's feelings towards the organization as well. The Timberwolves' hopes finally turned around into optimism. As the team finally improved from their drastic past, Kevin Garnett was blossoming into a legitimate weapon, scoring 17 a game, rebounding 8 a game, which helped him get his first All-Star appearance. But he wasn't alone during this stretch. The Wolves had leading scorer Tom Gugliotta, Sam Mitchell, and rookie Stephon Marbury to support Garnett. This group clinched the franchise's first playoff appearance with 40 wins. Unfortunately, they would lose to the Barkley, Drexler, and Olajuwon Houston Rockets in the first round. Even though they lost the first round, the Wolves finally showed the league that they were playoff worthy, led by a soon-to-be dominant Kevin Garnett. The Minnesota Timberwolves took off after the 96-97 season, having winning seasons year after year, along with making the playoffs year after year. Kevin Garnett ultimately became the team leader, consistently putting up 20 points a game for 9 years, and the league's rebounding leader for 4 years straight. However, Garnett wasn't alone during this stretch, as the Wolves added more weapons such as Wally Szczerbiak, Latrell Sprewell, Chauncey Billups, Troy Hudson, and Sam Cassell. In the 2003 and 2004 season, these weapons made the team the best in the Western Conference, with 58 wins, even more than the Kobe and Shaq Lakers. Garnett looked amazing, destroying the league's competition, winning him the Most Valuable Player award in the NBA. The Wolves as a team were dominant, making it all the way to the franchise's first Western Conference Finals, facing the three-peat Los Angeles Lakers. They managed to battle out 6 games with Kobe and Shaq, but failed to finish. This season would be the pinnacle of Minnesota's superiority in the league, and would begin the demise of Garnett's connection to the Wolves organization. After the 2003-2004 season, Kevin Garnett still remained powerful, receiving frequent All-Star selections, leading the league in rebounding, and scoring over 20 points per game. However, it seemed that his teammates could not keep up with him in skill level. The Wolves eventually lost Szczerbiak, Sprewell, and Cassell, leaving Garnett as the sole elite player on the team. More importantly, the organization fired Flip Saunders only after starting the 04-05 season 25-26. These absences eventually became noticeable, as the Wolves' total wins dwindled after 2004, along with no playoff appearances. Garnett started to become irritated, anxious, and disappointed as he remained one of the best in the league on a subpar team without the coach he grew so close to. The organization needed him and did not want to let him go, but in the 2007 offseason, they finally opened up to the trade block, hearing offers from several teams. However, even though Garnett was disappointed with the team, he never requested a trade. After more than a decade of playing for the Minnesota Timberwolves, Kevin Garnett was finally traded to the Boston Celtics in a massive deal including Al Jefferson, Ryan Gomes, Sebastian Telfair, Gerald Green, Theo Ratliff, Cash, and 2 first-round draft picks. Garnett felt betrayed after giving everything to the organization, but it wouldn't be worse for him though in the future. Garnett would join Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, and Rajon Rondo as they strived to win the 2008 NBA Finals, winning Garnett his first and most desired championship. Garnett and the Celtics would go on to dominate the Eastern Conference, making the playoffs year after year. However, they would fail to win the finals every time. Garnett made the playoffs 6 times on the Celtics, but he went to the playoffs 8 times on the Wolves. The difference here is that the Celtics were perceived as title contenders every year, and the Wolves were only known as the team who would lose in the first round. So does Kevin Garnett's resentment towards Glen Taylor and the Timberwolves organization come from the lack of winning in Minnesota compared to Boston? Not quite. His beef with them goes a little deeper. In 2013, Garnett was traded to the Brooklyn Nets, where he would spend 2 disappointing years along with an aging Paul Pierce. Garnett was aging as well, as he turned 38 in 2014. As he considered retirement, he pondered at the idea to end his career with the team he started with, the Timberwolves. With the encouragement of Flip Saunders, the then president of basketball operations for the Wolves, the deal was eventually finalized for him to return to the Wolves. But Garnett wanted a little extra. Garnett wanted to get more involved within the Wolves organization after retirement, such as a place in the front office and/or partial ownership in the team. Saunders agreed with Garnett and promised him those roles. Garnett was excited as he loved Saunders and he was optimistic for what the two could do for the Wolves in the future. Unfortunately, disaster struck. Flip Saunders was made coach of the Wolves once more in 2014, and as he would return for the 2015 season. However, and sadly, Saunders was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. Saunders passed away at 60 in 2015, just days away from the season starting. Garnett grieved, and he hoped he would carry on his legacy by doing his part for the future of the Timberwolves. But that dream was vanquished when Glen Taylor brought in Tom Thibodeau to be the head coach and president of basketball operations. Taylor also rescinded Saunders' promise to Garnett that he would have involvement in the organization. This betrayal infuriated Garnett, ending any relationship he had with Taylor and the organization. While Garnett retired with the Wolves in 2016, fans were wondering if he would retire his number with the Wolves, which is what Glen Taylor wanted as well. When asked, Garnett replied, "At this point, I don't want any dealings with Glen Taylor or Taylor Corp, or anything that has to do with him. And I don't do business with snakes." So it looks like as long as Glen Taylor is reigning, Wolves fans won't get to see number 21 raised in Target Center. If fans are that desperate to see his number retired, they won't have to wait, as the Boston Celtics announced that they will retire Kevin Garnett's number 5 in the Garden in the 2020-2021 season. Minnesota fans have been through some rough patches watching the Wolves, but watching your franchise player retire his number with another team must truly be heartbreaking. If you look back on the history of Glen Taylor and the Timberwolves, you might see why Garnett and the Minnesota fans call him and the organization snakes. In 2000, Taylor had been suspended 1 year, stripped of 5 first-round draft picks, and fined $3.5 million for an illegal and under-the-table agreement with an above-average Joe Smith, which cheated the NBA's league salary cap. So pretty much, Taylor's organization could have given Garnett more weapons, which may have fueled more energized playoff runs. Taylor and executive Kevin McHale also seemed to have prematurely fired an effective Flip Saunders in 2005, even after making the Western Conference Finals the year before, which did not make Garnett happy. There's many other things fans hate about the organization, like having 2 chances to draft Steph Curry in 2009, instead drafting Ricky Rubio and Johnny Flynn, but all of those mistakes are different stories. The Minnesota Timberwolves have never really been an NBA history-defining team like the LA Lakers, Celtics, and the Bulls, but it is hard to argue that they are a competitive team in the era of Kevin Garnett. He was seen as the chosen one for Minnesota sports, destined to lead them to ultimate victory. Garnett's reign along with Flip Saunders was promising, as they made the playoffs several times and almost went to the finals in 2004, but disappointment led to changes, as he would find his ring with the Celtics. He returned to Minnesota with optimism for the Wolves' future, but was denied as Taylor rescinded Saunders' promise of a front office and/or ownership deal. Garnett is still furious with Taylor to this day, with no plans to retire his jersey in Target Center anytime soon. He still loves the fans, community, and players in Minnesota, but resents the lack of productive leadership in the front office, which had been brewing for over a decade, as he will watch number 5 rise to the roof in Boston rather than 21 in Minnesota.